Hi everybody, welcome back to lesson 9 of my at-home learning series. This is lesson 9 of the series and lesson 2 of this mini unit. So there's 3 more after this in this mini unit of the 3 pigs. So last time I read this very boring covered but perfectly traditional 3 pigs story to you, just to make sure we all sort of started with the same understanding of the 3 pigs story. So as we start this conversation, if you're feeling like a little shaky about the traditional parts of the 3 pig story, please pause, go back and watch lesson 8 again, just to help you be ready for lesson 9. So last time we did the 3 pigs. So now you either watch that one to keep it fresh in your mind, or you already know the story really, really well. So kiddos, turn to an adult or another family member that's with you, and please tell them everything you can remember about the story of the 3 little pigs. Try to tell the whole story in order from the beginning with all the details you can remember. So families, pause here. Let them tell as much of that story as they can remember to activate that prior knowledge and make those connections for long-term memory. So you're going to pause here, and I'm going to keep going. So you've just let your child tell you as much as they can remember of the story of the 3 pigs. So what we're going to do today is think about other versions of the 3 pigs, because this is the traditional story that we all know. But the fun thing is that authors have taken that traditional story and sort of turned it around and changed it. So we're going to read one today that you might have read before. It's been pretty popular, The True Story of the 3 Pigs. So what we're going to be doing is actually using a graphic organizer to help us notice the different things that authors have changed from the original version to make their own version of the story. So I'm going to strongly suggest that you take a look at my chart here, pause the video, and either make one yourself, adults, have an older sibling help your child make one, or kiddos, you can try making one yourself. So you're going to want something that looks kind of like this. It's 5 parts so that we can record about each book how the author changed the story from the original version. So at the top it says, the 3 little pigs, and then I've made 5 columns. You could do this on blank paper or line paper. The first section is characters, then setting, then materials, then language, then ending. So we're going to be thinking about, as we finish each book, which part, what did the author change from the original version? Are the characters the same? Is the setting the same? The materials, language, etc. So before we start recording that for our new one, we should take a look at the last one, right? So if we take a look at this one, the first section it asks is characters. So who are the characters in this story? There's 3 little pigs. The mom's there too, but she's really just a background character. And then there's the big bad wolf. So it's 3 good pigs, big bad wolf. The setting, you might not have had these conversations in your classrooms at school. So being able to figure out the setting of a story is really important, right? Is this taking place in a city? Is it taking place in the rainforest somewhere? Is it taking place underwater? Is it taking place in outer space? Is it taking place in a neighborhood? So let's look for some clues and see if we can figure out where this is taking place. So look in this space behind what's in the front of the picture, right? The background back here. There's a bunch of clues as to what kind of place this is where the story is taking place. So what kind of setting would you say this is? If you said forest or woods, I would agree with you. I see a lot of trees and plants and grass in the background. I don't see a lot of buildings. I don't see any outer space. I have a little groundhog running around in my backyard right now. So it's taking place in the woods or in a forest. So that's our setting. What about our materials? What are the 3 materials the pigs used? The first one used straw. The second one used sticks. And the third one, bricks. So the 3 materials are straw, sticks, and bricks. Now, what you could be doing is actually writing these things down. I'm not going to write them down because I want you to do that work. And then the language. What are the words we kept hearing over and over again? The wolf came to the door and he said, little pig, let me come in. And then the pigs kept saying back, what? Right? Not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. And then there was one more sentence we heard over and over. The last thing the wolf said. Do you remember? Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down. So there were 3 sentences that kept happening over and over and over. What about the ending? Did they all live happily ever after? Did the wolf run away? Did the pigs get eaten? Right? Thinking about what happened at the end. So at the end of this story, the wolf fell in the pot. The pigs got back at him, and they were able to stay safe for the rest of the story. So now we're thinking this way with our 5 components. Pardon me. We're going to look at our new book. So this book is called The True Story of the 3 Pigs by a Wolf. So if you can tell, this is a newspaper style cover, right? Trying to make it look like it's from the newspaper. And you can see there's a hand holding the paper there, but not exactly a hand. Now this is told by John Sciezca, illustrated by Lane Smith. So, I almost forgot. This is the genre of fairy tales. So fairy tales are stories that we tell over and over and over again. Actually, this is more of a folk tale than a fairy tale. And they're stories we tell over and over again, and your parents heard them, and then their parents heard them, and their parents heard them, right? So they're stories we've been telling for a really, really long time. But the fun part is that these authors took that fairy tale and switched it a little bit to make it more interesting and new. So thinking about the story, and now thinking about the title, The True Story of the 3 Pigs. And there's a wolf right there in the picture. Take a moment, adults, pause the video and talk together. Okay, what might happen in this story if this is called The True Story of the 3 Pigs? There's a picture of a wolf here, and the article is written by a wolf. So hopefully now you've had that conversation. What might happen in this book? Maybe it's going to be different from the other story because it says the true story of the 3 pigs. So we're going to read. I'll stop a few places to have you talk together, and then we'll check back in. The True Story of the 3 Little Pigs. Oops, sorry. Everybody knows the story of the 3 little pigs, or at least they think they do. But I'll let you in on a little secret. Nobody knows the real story because nobody has ever heard my side of the story. And look, just like we saw in one of the other books, look at that word. See how it's italicized or a little bit curvy, slanted? That's a clue to give me a hint to read it a little differently. So instead of saying nobody has ever heard my side of the story, I have to put some oomph in it like this, because nobody has ever heard my side of the story. So here we go. Let's hear his side of the story. I'm the wolf, Alexander T. Wolf. You can call me Al. I don't know how this big bad wolf thing got started. Oh, wow, that is bright, sorry. But it's all wrong. That's already getting me to think about what the true story might be. Maybe it's because of our diet. So diet for an animal means what they eat. So if you pick up on some clues in this illustration, it gives you an idea of the sorts of things that wolves really eat, real wolves eat. So maybe it's because of our diet. Hey, it's not my fault wolves eat cute little animals like bunnies, sheep, and pigs. That's just the way we are. If cheeseburgers were cute, folks would probably think you were big and bad too. But like I was saying, the whole big bad wolf thing is all wrong. The real story is about a sneeze and a cup of sugar. Look, sneeze plus sugar. This is the real story. I have to move this close enough so we can both see. Way back in Once Upon a Time, I was making a birthday cake for my dear old granny. I had a terrible sneezing cold. I ran out of sugar. Now this illustrator, is very sneaky. I don't know if you notice anything about that bowl. What kind of birthday cake he might be making. So I walked down the street to ask my neighbor for a cup of sugar. Now this neighbor was a pig, and he wasn't too bright either. He had built his whole house out of straw. Can you believe it? I mean, who in their right mind would build a house of straw? Look, there are more of those little details. Look, he's there, tossing the cup up in the air, whistling, walking down the street just like anybody else. Sorry, my notes are on the other computer. I don't want them to fall asleep. So, of course, the minute I knocked on the door, it fell right in. I didn't want to just walk into someone else's house, so I called, little pig, are you in? So already be thinking about those five things: character, setting, materials, language, and ending. We're not at the ending yet, but you can notice maybe something about those 4 things. What has the author changed? Is it still pigs and a wolf? Is it still straw, sticks, and bricks? Does the language repeat, right? What sort of things is he changing and what sort of things are staying the same? So of course, the minute I knocked on the door, it fell right in. I didn't want to just walk into someone else's house, so I called, little pig, are you in? No answer. I was just about to leave without the cup of sugar from my dear old granny's birthday cake. That's when my nose started to itch. I felt a sneeze coming on. Well, I huffed and I snuffed. And I sneezed a great sneeze. And you know what? That whole darn straw house fell down. And right in the middle of the pile of straw was the first little pig, dead as a doornail. He had been there the whole time. It seemed like a shame to leave a perfectly good ham dinner laying there in the straw. So I ate it up. Think of it as a big cheeseburger just lying there. So now, families, we're going to pause here. Turn and talk, thinking about those 5 things. What has the author changed from the original story? So turn and talk, pause the video, because I'm going to talk about some of the answers to that when you come back. So pause here. Okay, so you're coming back now. You've talked about what John Sciezca has changed from the original story. So have the characters changed? No, there's still 3 pigs and a wolf. Has the setting changed? We don't see a lot of the setting yet, so it's hard to know for sure. But so far, it's not like there's a drastic change in setting. We don't see that they're in a completely different kind of place. So that seems to be mostly the same. The materials so far seem to be the same. What about that language? Are they saying the same things? No, right? This time he huffed and he puffed. He huffed and he snuffed, right? It was him sneezing this time. The pig didn't answer when he knocked on the door. He asked if he can come in, right? So far that language really changed. And we're not at the ending yet. But so far, really, the main thing that has changed is the language that gets used over and over. So let's keep going. It seemed like a shame to leave a perfectly good ham dinner just lying there. So I ate it up. Think of it as a big cheeseburger just lying there. I was feeling a little better, but I still didn't have my cup of sugar. So I went to the next neighbor's house. This neighbor was the first little pig's brother. He was a little smarter, but not much. He had built his house out of sticks. Now, take a second to think, why is he saying something about them being smart? Why do you think it was he thought the first pig who built his house out of straw? Why do you think he was saying he was not smart? And why is he saying this pig is a little smarter, but not much because he built his house out of sticks? Pause here and think about that. So I know for me, a straw house doesn't seem like the smartest and strongest place. Sticks do seem a little stronger, but still not the strongest. So I can understand why he thinks they might not be the smartest pigs. I rang the bell on the stick house. Nobody answered. Let's see, I want to get you to be able to see that. I called, Mr. Pig, Mr. Pig, are you in? He yelled back, Go away, wolf! You can't come in! I'm shaving the hairs on my chinny chin chin. So hopefully you're already thinking about those five components, and how the author has changed them. I had just grabbed the doorknob when I felt another sneeze coming on. I huffed and I snuffed and I tried to cover my mouth, but I sneezed a great sneeze. And you are not going to believe it, but this guy's house fell down just like his brother's. When the dust cleared, there was the second little pig, dead as a doornail. Wolf's honor. So he's promise he was already dead. Do you believe him? Now you know how food will spoil if you just leave it out in the open. So I did the only thing there was to do. I had dinner again. Think of it as a second helping. I was getting awfully full, but my cold was feeling a little better, and I still didn't have that cup of sugar for my dear old granny's birthday cake. So I went to the next house. This guy was the first and second little pig's brother. He must have been the brains of the family because he had built his house out of bricks. I knocked on the brick house. No answer. I called, Mr. Pig, are you in? And do you know what that rude little porker answered? Get out of here, wolf! Don't bother me again. Talk about impolite. He probably had a whole sack full of sugar, and he wouldn't give me even one little cup for my dear sweet old granny's birthday cake. What a pig. I was just about to go home and maybe make a nice birthday card instead of a cake when I felt my cold coming on. I huffed and I snuffed and I sneezed once again. Then the third little pig yelled, And your old granny can sit on a pin. Now, usually I'm a pretty calm fellow, but when somebody talks about my granny like that, I go a little crazy. When the cops drove up, of course, I was trying to break down the pig's door, and the whole time I was huffing and puffing and screaming and making a real scene. The rest, as they say, is history. Big bad wolf. The news reporters found out about the 2 pigs I had for dinner. They figured a sick guy going to borrow a cup of sugar didn't sound very exciting. So they jazzed up the story with all that huff and puff and blow your house down. And they made me the big bad wolf. That's it. The real story. I was framed. That means this was all like a trick, kind of, like it wasn't real. He didn't really do anything wrong. But maybe you could loan me a cup of sugar? So that's the end of the true story of the 3 little pigs. I really hope you enjoyed it. It's always a really fun one to do together in class. So now you've got some thinking to do. Go back to that chart you made, the characters, the setting, the materials, language, and ending. And together as a family, I'd like you to try to fill that in for the first story. Now, bear in mind, you're going to have a few more stories to fit here. So you might want to make lines to divide it. There will be 4 more versions, 4 versions altogether in addition to the original. So work on that together. Pause here because I am going to go over it and I don't want to spoil it for you. So hopefully as a family you have recorded on your chart the things that you noticed about the elements of the story. So the characters, the 3 good pigs, right? And then the 1 bad wolf. That's the same as the original. The setting seems to be about the same. The materials are about the same. We noticed the language was different. And then the ending. In the original story, the wolf ended up in a pot. But in this one, what happened to him? He ended up in jail. So now the main thing for you to discuss as a family is, who do you believe? Do you believe the original version where the wolf's a bad guy? Or do you believe this version, which basically says this was all a mistake, a misunderstanding, and really he was just trying to get a cup of sugar? So discuss that together, and I'd love to see your comments below. What do you believe now that you've read both versions? Who seems like they're telling the truth? Thanks for joining me. When you come back for lesson 10, we'll be reading another version of the 3 pigs. Bye.